There is a figure that crosses cultures, centuries, and symbolism, a being that inhabits the border between what is known and what does not yet have a name. In Eastern tradition, the fox is that being. Not an ordinary animal, but a creature that learned to exist on both sides at once. In Chinese and Japanese folklore, she accumulates wisdom over time, crossing the veil between the visible and the invisible. She is ancient, and antiquity, for those who know how to read it, is synonymous with depth. Today she is not doing alchemy. She is not consulting scrolls or mixing substances that glow. She is sitting with a cup of tea between her hands. And perhaps that is the wisest gesture she has ever made. Today the question we brought is simple, and for that very reason, difficult. What if life were not waiting somewhere ahead? What if it were happening now, here, in this exact moment you almost didn't notice? Let's sit with that for a few minutes. You washed the dishes today, or took a shower, or made breakfast, or closed the front door behind you and walked somewhere without paying much attention to the way there. You did those things, and at the same time you didn't. The body was there. The hands were moving, but the mind was somewhere else entirely. In the meeting coming later, in yesterday's conversation that still weighs, in the future that hasn't arrived yet, in the past that keeps coming back. It is a very specific feeling, being present in body and absent in everything else. Moving through entire hours of your own life as if they were a corridor between two places that actually matter. And the curious thing is that those two places that seem to matter, the past and the future, are the only two places where you can never truly be. The only place you can be is here, and here almost always feels too small to matter. There is a silent belief that many people carry without ever having chosen to carry it. The belief that real life is somewhere else, that it begins later, after the project is finished, after the relationship improves, after you move, after you finally reach that point that hasn't arrived yet. That the days of right now are a kind of waiting room, that what truly matters is reserved for some larger, clearer moment more worthy of full attention. And while that belief operates underneath everything, the everyday keeps being discarded. The cup of tea is just a cup of tea. The commute from home to work is just an interval between two places. The quiet dinner is just a task. The ordinary weekend is just time passing. Always just. The Roman philosopher Marcus Aurelius, who governed an empire and still found time to write to himself about the quality of attention, observed something that seems simple and is not, that a human life is made of moments, and that every moment dismissed as insignificant is life that passes without being lived. He was not talking about grand philosophies. He was talking about breakfast, about a conversation with someone close, about the moment before sleep, about the things that happen every day and that, precisely because of that, receive less attention than they deserve. In Zen Buddhism, there is a practice called samu, everyday work as a form of meditation. Washing the dishes not as a task to be finished so something better can begin, but as the very place where the mind learns to be present. The broom is not an obstacle to enlightenment. It is the path, not because the dishes are sacred, but because the attention you bring to them is. And when these two ideas meet, Marcus Aurelius's quiet observation and the Zen practice of the ordinary as path, something begins to shift in the way we see common days. Not to make them more dramatic, to make them more real. What if the question were not, when is my life going to really begin? What if the real question were this one, the one that hurts a little more to ask? What if it is already happening, and I am absent from it? Think about how many times you were physically somewhere and mentally somewhere else entirely. How many meals you ate without tasting. How many conversations you participated in without truly listening. How many mornings you moved through on autopilot, waiting for the day to get better later, and later never turned out to be any different from the beginning. Not for lack of effort, for lack of presence. And there is something very specific that the everyday does when you finally stop treating it as an obstacle. It reveals texture. The cup that was cold has a weight in your hand you had never noticed. The path you walk every day has a tree that changes color with the seasons, and you never saw it because you never looked. The person who shares your space has a way of breathing when they are concentrated that you knew without knowing you knew. Pause. The everyday is not what happens between the important moments. It is the largest part of your life, and taking care of it, paying attention to it, truly inhabiting it, is not resignation. It is not giving up on wanting more. It is recognizing that more is already happening, and that you have been passing through it without noticing. Every contemplative tradition that survived time arrived at some version of the same perception, that the sacred is not reserved for the great moments, that it does not appear only at the peaks, in revelations, in crises, in the dramatic turning points that memory holds on to. It inhabits the small, the repeated, what seems too insignificant to deserve attention. And all of them developed specific practices for this, not to make the ordinary extraordinary, but to perceive the extraordinary that the ordinary always contained. The Christian mystic Simone Weil wrote about attention as the purest form of generosity. Not attention as forced concentration, but a quality of presence that receives what is in front of you without immediately trying to turn it into something else, without already thinking about the next step while still in this one. She said that most people pass through life without ever having truly looked at anything, not out of ill will, out of a habit of absence. And that is not a criticism. It is an invitation, because attention is not a talent you are born with or without. It is a practice, something that develops slowly, with stumbles, with days when you move through everything on autopilot and only notice when it is already night. It is not a belief you adopt. It is something you perceive in that specific moment when you are washing the dishes and, for some reason you cannot explain, you truly feel the warm water on your hands, and you notice you were absent before that, and that now, for an instant, you are here. The fox's alchemy was always about transformation, but perhaps the most silent and most real transformation does not happen in the grand processes. Perhaps it happens in the moment you decide that this cup, this commute, this ordinary dinner, this afternoon of nothing special, deserves your full presence. Not because they are extraordinary, but because you are in them, and you are unrepeatable. Today, when you finish watching this video, something completely ordinary is going to happen. You are going to stand up, pick up your phone, or make a meal, or wash something, or walk from one room to another. And there is a small choice available in that moment. Not a great decision, not a life change, just the choice to be a little more present than you would normally be. To notice the floor beneath your feet, the weight of the glass in your hand, the specific light of this moment, which will not be exactly the same tomorrow. Taking care of the everyday is not a productivity technique. It is not mindfulness as a trend. It is something older and simpler than any name we try to give it. It is recognizing that your life is not happening somewhere ahead. It is happening now, in this exact moment you almost let pass. The question that remains, to be carried through the coming days, especially in the most ordinary moments, is this: what have you been moving through without truly inhabiting? And that, if you stopped for a moment, would reveal that life is already happening exactly there. If something here is still moving inside you, perhaps it is worth continuing to walk this path. The everyday is waiting. It always has been.